Hello beautiful people, welcome back to my channel, and welcome to the July 2025 reading wrap up. So I just spent probably more time than I want to admit updating my reading journal and getting everything situated so we could do this little reading wrap up. Let me turn on the light. Also, for you who have been following this saga of whether or not this mic works on my camera, you shall see the box is packed up. I will be returning this mic. I do not think it's working, so for now, we are going to be doing what we're doing, where we're recording audio on a separate device. So hopefully it sounds better for all of you people involved in listening to me speak for more than 5 seconds at a time. Anyway, as soon as I started talking, my nose started running. Give me 1 second. Okay, so July actually was kind of a big reading month, which really surprised me. Did I show you this mug? I got it from Caffeine and Legends because I wanted free shipping, and it's super cute. Okay. So July was actually a pretty good reading month, an interesting month overall. I would say a lot of different things here. If this is your first time visiting my channel, I have turned my reading journal that I got from Illumicrate a while back into both a reading journal, but then there's just like extra space on here for things that I'm just not gonna fill out. Like the amount of space they give you for the number of books that you complete. So I completed 12 books, spoiler alert. I completed 12 books in the month of July, and I didn't even fill up a full page. So I think there's like 15. So if I'm reading 30 books a month, I would fill up this whole page, but I've never read 30 books in a month. I know there are some girlies out there who do in fact read 30 books in a month, and that is awesome for them. I am not one of those people. So I've been kind of turning it into a little bit of a smash book and putting things in here, adding stickers, decorating, and stuff like that to take up these pages. So with that, we had an exciting month here. It was an exciting July overall, I would say. Not as hectic as June was, which is probably why we read more, but a fun July, a fun time. So for our July TBR, really the only books that we have listed on there, it was pretty much Summerween. So Summerween went from July 5th to July 12th. It was 8 days this year. If you're not familiar with Summerween, I'll go ahead and link Gabby's video below where she explains Summerween, and I will also list my Summerween TBR if you're curious about which books I had listed on that TBR versus which ones I actually read, which you can stick around here. So my monthly TBR was mostly that. I didn't really anticipate any other books for reading because really I was focused on Summerween, and then the only other 2 books I was looking to read were going to be for Kayla's from Books and Lala's buzzword challenges. With all that being said, let's go ahead, start off with our stats, and then we'll actually we'll drive into the books. Let's start with our stats, and then we will dive into the books that we read in the month of July. So, as I showed you, I am going to use our monthly stat page wrap up here to kind of go through what our stats are. I do have my story graph up too, just in case. But this pretty much has everything from Storygraph, so it makes it pretty easy for me to keep that all in one place and have all that good stuff. Who knows, I might drop the graphic on here too, just so you can follow along. So again, we read a dozen, not a baker's dozen, but we read a dozen books for the month of July. So we read 12 books. The top genre, which I wasn't surprised when I was seeing the books, July, like outside of Summerween, was pretty much we were doing summer fun reading. We were looking for light, easy, breezy, beautiful cover girl reads here. So the top genre for the month of July was romance. The total pages read was 4,176 pages, which is a good amount of pages, I think. If I go back to, let's see what it was in June. June, it was only 2,077. And then I've got all these little clips here. If we go to, I would say probably May is more comparable. So May, we read 10 books and we read 3,989 pages. So doing pretty good there, doing pretty good. So the average page length of a book, and that was 351 pages. So we had some chunky books, we had some smaller books. So we got a good average. I feel like average-wise, it's a good sized book. The numbers aren't going to sound quite right on here because obviously I did have some like overlap when it came to audiobooks and physical books. So I'll let you know which one of those that is. So for physical books read, I had 5 books that I read physically. 2 of those were in tandem with audiobooks, or like I went back and forth. So I had 3 books that were audiobooks, but like I said, it's really 1 book that I read in totality for straight audio that I just listened to in the month of July. So realistically, that math doesn't seem right. Hold on one second. Let's take this back. So 6 books were read physically, with 2 of those being done in tandem with an audiobook. So realistically, we only listened to 1 book in totality. Oh my gosh. In totality with an audiobook, and then the other 2 were done in tandem with a physical book. So my count says 3, but really it's 1. Or halves. 2.5. 2 halves, 2. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah. So only one book that we only listened to an audiobook. And then 5 of those books were digital reads. And those 5, I think all 5 of the digital reads were not on my TBR. They were not Summerween books because I was shopping my shelf, and I also, like I mentioned, grabbed some books from other sources to read for Summerween. In mind, we did pretty good with our TBR. We had 7 books on the TBR and we read 5 out of the 7. Now, average rating. I have only had 2, I was gonna say 5, but 5 stars. So I've only had 2 5 stars this year. That was What Moves the Dead, and then The Memory Palace? Yes, I believe it's The Memory Palace. It's the name of the book, which is a nonfiction. Those are my 2 5 stars for the year of 2025. So when it comes to average ratings, my average rating was a 3.75 this month. And honestly, I'm not too surprised because, like I mentioned, my top genre for the month of July was romance. And typically for romances, it's either a 3 or 3.5. A 3.5 means like it was pretty good. A 3 is like it was what I expected it to be. I kind of knew what I was getting, and it was a good time. It was a fast time. It was a fun time. I was just there for kicks, for what I was looking for. So 3.75. Hello, pumpkins. I've disrupted her. Napping. Now, I did read, because I read a lot of romances, I read a lot of companion novels, so I'm not going to count those in series started. But I did start 3 new series this month, and 3. Where are the 3? Where's the 3rd one? Oh yes, okay. Yeah, 3 new series. And I will count it as a series. I mean, I guess a duology could count. I don't know if I'll count a duology as a series. I am counting a trilogy as a series. because I feel like that's enough of a commitment to count that as a series. So started 3, which great, good, because we completed none. No series completed, although I did complete what I think like was like a duology, but like I said, I'm not really counting that. And then the rest of the books, if they were in a series, they were companion novels, and I'm not really counting them as a series. So book of the month, the best book I read this month. I think it's the best rated. I wouldn't say it was the best book, if that makes sense. Like, it was my favorite book that I read, but was it the best book that I read? Like, technically speaking, probably not. But surprisingly, the highest rated book for the month of July was Diarbound by Sable Sorensen. I was actually influenced by Olivia from Olivia Reads a Latte to read this. She brought it up in like one vlog. I don't even know if she, sorry I keep doing this with my hair. I just don't want it to get in the way of the mic. I'm a little concerned about that. But I don't think I don't know if she reviewed it or talked about it any more than this like one time. But I thought it was on KU because she had mentioned that it was on KU. And basically it is a story about, I can't even remember the main character's name right now, which is so terrible. But that's fine. Our main character, our main female character, she lives in the slums of this country, and they have been basically in a forever war with these vampire-like creatures for like 500 years. And kids have been stolen from this district that she's in. She's a cage fighter. That's how she earns extra income because her mom's sick, and she has a little sister, and her father unfortunately passed away in the war, so she is the breadwinner for the family. And basically what happens is her little sister gets captured in the middle of the night, like other kids have been happening, and she wants to go to the front because the belief is that these kids are being captured by the opposing vampire sides. And so the only way that she thinks she can get her sister back is by going to the front and trying to find her and hopefully the other kids as well who have been captured. And so she decides to enlist. She didn't have to enlist because she has an exemption because her mother does need care, but she decides to enlist. However, doesn't know until her boyfriend, who we are to understand is like a messenger for the royal family or something like that. He's got connections. Basically tells her, no, this is such bad timing because they're doing, I'm just going to call it the reaping. It's not the reaping. They're doing, essentially, there's like an elite army force and they ride dire wolves. And these are like huge dire wolves, like mountable dire wolves, not like dire wolves from Game of Thrones, like bigger than that. So these dire wolves that you bond with, and they're like the elite warrior class who really help in the fight against these vampire-esque people that they're fighting on the other side of the war. So essentially, she has to go through this trial to see if she bounds with a direwolf, hence the name Direbound. And of course, it wouldn't be a very interesting story. I mean, it could have been, but it wouldn't be the story Direbound if she did not get bound with the wolf. And she did not want that. So it's a little complicated with how she ends up in this situation. But essentially, she has to go through like this training in order to get on the battlefield to try to find her sister. And most of the people who end up bound to the dire wolves are like family's legacy. Like they train their whole lives. This is what their family does. And so she is definitely an outcast as somebody who comes from like the slums of this area. And so it's got that school mentality. It is older. I know people have compared it to Fourth Wing. I don't know if I would compare it. Like, I could see where you would compare it to Fourth Wing, but I don't. I'm trying not to do that because I think this story, to me, had a more compelling why for our main character to end up where she's at. Now, I think I had a really good time. It was a lot of fun. There were elements, because this is definitely pitched as a romantasy. I think this first book is not as romantasy heavy as maybe the next book will be. But I like the premise of this better. I thought that our main character has a bit more of a drive to be there, even though she didn't want to be there, and like a driving force of to why she's trying to prove herself. I did guess a lot of the twist, which is fine. I wasn't expecting there to be twists. I liked the characters in here. I liked the relationships that she was building. I knew where some things were going, and that's fine. Probably why I gave it a 4.5 and not a 5, because there were some tropey things. There were some things that I kind of gave an eye roll, but overall I had a really good time. I thought this was really well done, and I would recommend this to people to read if you're looking for a romantasy that does a little bit better balance than I think I've seen some other romantasies doing. So that is the 4.5. The rest of these books, we are a 4 or below. I didn't have any books that I hated this month, which is great. So we'll just kind of go through these books in sequence. I mean, I guess I could go by the 4 stars first, and then we could go to the 3.5s and the 3s. We could do that. Okay, so let's go with our 4 stars first. So the first 4 star that I had in the month of July was The Goodbye Cat by Hiro Arikawa. This came over from June to July for TBR wise, because I was reading this for the buzzword challenges for a book with an animal word in it, and a book with an animal on the cover. It met both of these. I've had this on my shelf for a little while. It is basically just a Japanese translated group of short stories focused on cats and their humans. The next book was the first book I read for Summerween, and that was The God and the Gwynson, which is actually the second novel for following up with The God and the Gumio. I wouldn't say this is a companion novel. I would say this is a follow-up novel, even though we have a lot of different characters from the first novel, but we are following events that happened in the first novel. So you will spoil for yourself what happened in The God in the Gumio. Cut me off. You will spoil The God and the Gumio if you read The God and the Gwynson without reading The God and the Gumio. Okay, 4 stars. I think I give The God and the Gumio 3.5. And it was cute. I liked it. I like the romance, like Korean dramas. If you especially like Korean dramas that focus on like Korean mythology, I think you would like both of these books. This one takes place on a afterlife cruise, and we have a murder mystery, and we have a cast of silly characters, and I think it was a bit more lighthearted and funny. A bit more lighthearted and funnier than the first book. The first book got a little dark, and I think there were just some things from what I remember that I was like, okay, sure. It just didn't quite scratch that itch, but this was just like a good little fun time. So I definitely recommend both of them. Like I said, I wouldn't read one without the other, but yeah, I think if you're looking to maybe scratch that K-pop Demon Hunter itch, maybe this one would be interesting for you. I think you would get some pleasure out of it. Next 4-star book was also a Summerween pick, and this is My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. First one, not last one, that I'll be reading for Stephen Graham Jones. The TLDR on this one is essentially we have a girl who is obsessed with slashers, and she becomes convinced that a slasher has come to her town, and she has to prep the final girl to save them all. Next 4-star, which was also a Summerween pick, was Monstrilio by Gerardo Samana Cordova. This was actually for the book that's been sitting on my TBR for at least a year. I wanted to pick up Monstrilio since, I don't know if it was Katie from Katie Marie Reads, or if it was actually Allie from Allison Page's, but one of them read Monsterleo first and recommended it, and I was interested in it. And then I think Gabby from Gabby Reads also read it and really liked it. A lot of people read it and really enjoyed it. It's kind of a horror lit fic. It is about a mom who not just saves, I feel like that is a misnomer on this. She cuts open her child after he passes in a fit of grief. And I want to say that because it is like graphic. Like she's talking to you about what she's doing. So I did want to throw that out there. So she does take a piece of his lug. I thought like maybe she got it from like the way that it was pitched, or like the way that I was listening to it. I thought she just like got it from the corner or something. No. Homegirl takes a lung out of the child. So she ends up feeding it and it turns into this monster, Monsterleo. It is done in 4 parts following 4 different characters in the books, like so 4 different points of view, and that's how it's broken up, which I was surprised by when I first was listening to the audiobook, because they don't tell you they're moving into a new part. So I was kind of confused until I picked up the physical book to continue on and realized, oh, okay, we are switching POVs. We are going to stay with this person for a little while. But again, it took me a little while to get into it. I think because we had 4 different POVs, there were some POVs I preferred to others. And I would say the mom's was my least favorite. She is a rather unlikable character. So I think maybe, and she's the first POV we get, and I think maybe that would be why I had trouble getting into it when I started it. Is that our last 4? No. One more 4, a surprise here, but maybe not. So this is a romance novel that I read called Savor It by Tara DeWitt. I picked this one up because Gabby from Gabby Reads recommended it, and her and I tend to agree on romances. So generally, if Gabby says that she really liked a romance, because she reads a lot of romance, but not as much as some of the other romance readers, like I feel like more casually reads romance like I do. So if she's interested in romance, I'm generally like wanting to check it out just to see. And this one is like, the premise is this chef and his niece, who he's the guardian of, end up going to this small town for the summer. He's basically had a crash out from his career and is feeling a little aimless with his life. And then his niece, whose mother passed away like 3 years ago, is kind of going through that same transition, and they're trying to connect with one another. And so he decides to take up this olive branch that his former employer gives him to give him a second chance and go to this small town where our main character lives. She is an orphan who, she was like, her mom died when she was pretty young, and then her dad died when she was like 12, and she's got 3 siblings, 3 brothers. And so she was kind of like raised by the town, and she really tries to live her life by savoring every moment because she had these experiences. And so her interactions with our main character, you know, are helping him kind of look into the life that he has and trying to find the joys and the things that he used to love doing and things like that. And then in turn for her, she hasn't been supported by the previous partner that she had, and so a lot of things that she really enjoyed, she treated as being silly because of the person that she was with. And so I feel like he kind of opens her up for that. So it's a small town, there's a little bit of fake dating, found family, other families, different things like that, dealing with grief and trying to find yourself. And I had a really good time, so gave that one 4 stars. For our 3.5s, that's the majority of the books, so buckle up. We'll start with the last book that I read in July, just because I'm on this page, and that is Fairy Godmurder by Sarah J. Sover. So this book, funny enough, I found out about this book through Dragon Con. She was on a panel for urban fantasy, and I thought the premise was really interesting. Her main character is a former fairy godmother who has been tracking a serial killer for the last 5 years because a serial killer, I say her, his, because we don't know who the serial killer is, or they. So the serial killer's first victim was her first charge. She was like this princess. And it is urban fantasy, so there's all different types of creatures in this story, but she's been trying to solve this murder, and she's like on the 5th year, and the murders have started again because they always start around a certain time of year. And so this is the first book in the series. It's similar in style to something like the Dresden Files or Patricia Briggs' Mercy Thompson series, where, you know, we've got a case to solve with each book. So I will be continuing on this series. I gave it a 3.5. I liked it. I think like some of it dragged for me, which is why I gave it a 3.5. But I don't see a lot of urban fantasies like this anymore outside of something like Jim Butcher, so I was happy to find another one that I liked, because I tried reading the Kim Harrison books and I really didn't like those. So Fairy Godmother is one I want to continue with, and she's also the book has not a ton of reviews. So if you're interested in something that's a bit more urban fantasy or want to try the genre, I would highly recommend go check her out, because she is a smaller published author, and so I think it'd be great to support her. So go ahead and check her out. I'll link the book down below if you're interested. Another romance that we read that I gave a 3.5 was The Co-op by Tara DeWitt. And I felt like this book dragged a little bit, which is why I give it a 3.5. I think Save Right had a better pace, but it was still fun. I liked the elements of the grandmas, and we do have like a bit of a back and forth in time of seeing their relationship. So it does give you that chance to see where their connection was and then kind of go from there. This was actually for the buzzword challenge for technology, because there was a cell phone on the picture, and that is ASAP by Axio. Like I said, it's a companion novel, so we're following characters we met in XOXO. It's a second chance romance. I liked it. It was fun. It did like a little bit behind the scenes in the K-pop industry, which I think is always fun. And I thought the two characters had a really nice dynamic. More 3.5s. I think we've got two, maybe just one, two. Nope, just one more. So the other one, this is another one of our Summerweens. This is Direct Descendant by Tanya Huff. It's a cozy horror. It definitely is a cozy horror. It's got eldritch horrors, but it's in a small town, and it's kind of a quirky small town. And what's going on is objectively weird and horror based, but it's not handled in that way. The characters are kind of silly in a lot of ways. There is a romance in here. It was fun. I think I would have liked it more if it was a little more balanced. This isn't a series, so it's a standalone, so maybe if we made it a little longer, the ending wouldn't have felt so rushed, and we could have sat in the story a little bit longer to make the romance not so insta-lovey and to give us some time to breathe, so when the climax of the story came, we were really ready for it and it felt earned. And the last book, which I feel like this is tough because it was a nonfiction that I gave 3 stars, but this is Every Living Thing by Jason Roberts, and this book focused on 2 men who had a great impact on basically the way that we categorize the natural world and look at the natural world, and their differing opinions, and how their opinions and how the community took their words and how it affected us now and still affects us. It was interesting. I wouldn't have picked it up had it not been for the Buzzword Challenge. finally, just to throw this in, I didn't rate this book, but this is the graphic novel I read for the Summerween challenge, and that was Cry Wolf Volume 1 by Patricia Briggs. It's the graphic novelization of her series, The Alpha and Omega, so it didn't even get through the first full book. So I didn't really rate it because, like, there's multiple volumes and I just feel like we weren't getting the full story, so it's kind of hard to rate that. But I had it signed by Patricia Briggs when I was at DragonCon, and I needed to get that final book, and so it was there. I've read it, and so now it's read, on my shelf, and signed, which is great. So that is everything we read in July. I feel like I talked for longer and did not summarize as well as I would have liked to, but I would love to hear how your July went, if you had any favorite books, if you've read any of the books that I've read and you really enjoyed them, or if now you're interested in picking up one, let me know. And if you feel like sticking around, feel free to subscribe. I upload every Friday. And until next time, I hope you read a good book. I hope you find some joy. And most importantly, I hope you do something to make the world a better place. And I will see you in my next one. Bye.